very fortunate today to have a friend of mine. His name is Paul Glover. I grew up with his son Brian. Most of you went to the Aquascapes field trip in St. Charles. Brian was there for a little bit. Actually talked to you guys for a little bit when we were looking at all the koi in that turtle area. Brian was there. Anyways, Paul is Brian's dad. I grew up at their house all the time, slept over. Very good friend of mine, and I think you're going to like his presentation. He's a business consultant. He's a leadership coach. He's also an author. One of his books is on your extra credit book list. His book is called Workquake. His second book he's working on right now, which is pretty cool. So without further ado, Paul, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. I hope you like his presentation.
Thank you, Todd. First, it's a privilege to be here. It always is to speak to a group of any size and be able to hopefully tell you some things that you're going to find to be valuable. But the first thing that I always like to answer is that question: why am I standing here? Why did Todd Mertz decide to ask me to come and use up an hour of your time? And the answer to that's very simple. I'm a failure. Absolutely. In fact, I'm one of the biggest failures that you're ever going to hear talk to you about anything important to your life. I wasn't always a failure, and I'm not a failure now. So my story isn't over. But the important part of that story is what we're going to talk about today. And when you look at the sheet that I passed out, you'll see that it has a few items that describe me. But I think the most interesting item for most audiences is the ex-felon. So that story began not with a conviction, but with the crime. And I would suggest to you that the nature of the crime is something that most of you will be facing at some point in your career. Assuming you move on into business, and the higher you move in the corporate ladder and the business ladder, where you become the leader, the more you will face the temptations that I faced. And the opportunity to make a choice when faced with those temptations will dictate whether or not you continue to be a success or you become a failure. My failure started when I was in charge of a $350 million pension fund. And we were going to select a manager, an outside firm, that would manage this $350 million, hopefully making a profit so that we would be able to increase the pension fund monthly payment for the members of the union who were in the pension fund. And we had interviewed three firms, three very good firms. They'd come highly recommended. And at the end of that interview session, I was sitting in my office and I selected the one firm that I believed would be best for the fund. And at that moment, my business partner, the president of the union, and my best friend came into my office. And he asked me if I'd had an opportunity to make a choice about which one of the three. And I said, I have. And he said, which one? I told him. And he said, that's fantastic, because that's the firm that I would have selected also. Now, on the pension fund board, there were two employer trustees, and they would also have a choice, a decision to make. And he said, do you think that you can convince them, the other two, to also choose this firm? And I said, absolutely. There's no question in my mind, and therefore I don't think there will be in theirs. And he said, that's even better. Because I want to let you know that a friend of mine works for this management company that you have decided would be the best for the pension fund. And because he introduced our pension fund and the opportunity to the management company, and if we select the management company, he is going to get a huge bonus. And I just talked to him on the phone, my partner said, and he said, you know, he's willing to share that bonus with us. What was my next question? To my partner. Anyone?
Like, is that legal?
No. I knew it wasn't legal, by the way, I was a lawyer.
Oh.
It was how much?
Are you sure you're doing the right thing, or how far will you go?
Well, obviously, the ethical question that you're asking is not the ethical question that I asked. My question was, how much? How much is the bonus that I'm going to receive? You see, I've now taken that first step away from being ethical and becoming not only unethical, but committing a crime. But I was very quickly able to rationalize the question about how much. The rationalization is very simple. I can take you through the steps right now. First, I'd already made the decision that this was the management company we should hire. I knew that they were going to do the best job. Second, my partner had come to the same conclusion, but for a different reason. So I knew this was the right choice to make, and I was able to then take the right choice and justify the question about how much. Because a part of my mind was, well, the decision has already been made. Why should this person that had nothing to do with me making the decision, doing the work necessary to make the selection, get this huge bonus? And by the way, who's it hurting? Who is it hurting? It's not going to hurt the pension fund. It's not going to hurt the members of the union who are going to receive the pension benefits. It's merely this person who's getting this windfall who has said they will share the windfall. Temptation. Now, I absolutely agree that my next question, or my answer should have been, I'm not interested, but it wasn't. I rationalized in that instance, and the question was how much. Now, I have to admit, if it had been $5,000 or $10,000, I would have had a different answer. But you know what it was? It was $150,000. Untaxed dollars. And the second thing that made it more plausible, made it more acceptable, was the person who offered the temptation to me. This wasn't some stranger. It wasn't the guy who was going to get the bonus. It wasn't the management company. It was my best friend, my partner, who came in and offered me the temptation. All of those conditions created the situation that made me accept the offer and get $150,000 in cash. By the way, it was unethical and it was also illegal. But I can tell you right now that in your career, you will face a similar temptation. I don't know when, and I don't know by who, but I guarantee you if you are successful and you become a leader and you move up the ranks of the business and the corporation, that at some point, a friend, a coworker, your boss, a client, is going to walk into your office and offer you an opportunity that's really a temptation. The concept of being prepared for that is required. Otherwise, you will find a justification for doing it. If your boss comes in and says he wants you to do something that's illegal, but if the client is happy, you'll get a promotion, that becomes a temptation. The odds are that you will face this and you will have to make the decision. Part of what I have to tell you is the justification for not making the wrong decision. I made the wrong decision. By the way, it was the first of many. Let me tell you that when you do the wrong thing once, it's so much easier to do the wrong thing twice, or 3 times, or 4 times. You're on the slippery slope. You've made that first move and you're now sliding. There's very little to stop you. You already have accepted the fact that you will do something unethical or illegal. You've already ruined your self-image. You've tarnished it yourself. No one else did it to you. You did it. But that tarnished self-image now allows you some more freedom to do the wrong thing. And that's exactly what happened. My partner, my best friend, continued to bring opportunities to me, and I continued to say yes. 3 years later, I left the union and I started my practice, legal practice. Very successful, trial lawyer in the city of Chicago, federal courts. 2 years after that, I was indicted by a federal grand jury on 33 counts of taking bribes and kickbacks. 2 trials later, I was sentenced to 7 years of incarceration in a federal prison camp. Lost my law license, never able to practice again, and spent 5.5 years in prison. That's bad enough to go to prison, but fighting the government, trying not to go with those 2 trials, cost my family all of our savings, my son's college education funds, and I put a second mortgage on our home. When I went to prison, I left my family financially destitute and emotionally destroyed. Can you imagine what it would be like for you one day to have to walk into your home and to tell your spouse that you're a crook, to tell your children that you're a thief, and that you're going to go to prison and have destroyed their life along with your own? I spent 5.5 years in prison reflecting on what I had done to destroy my career, to destroy my family, and to destroy myself. Second part of this story is redemption and recovery. Because all of you are going to face failure, hopefully not the catastrophic part of that concept that I just described, but you are going to fail. It is inevitable. It is inevitable because failure is a stepping stone to success. If you ask every leader who has become successful, they will describe to you a failure that they had to overcome before they became successful. So I would suggest to you that failure is going to show up. Adversity is going to be part of your career trajectory. The question is, when there is failure, there will be temptation. They're connected. They're like twins. Sometimes they come like opportunities. Sometimes they're not. You have to be able to make that distinction. When I got out of prison, I could no longer practice law. I was 50 years old and an ex-con. Believe me, the job market was not robust. The people that I contacted and I knew before I went to prison had no opportunities for me. After 6 months of not being able to find employment, I filled out an application to become a barista at Starbucks. Successful trial attorney, barista at Starbucks. A week before I submitted that application, I got my first teaching job. And I took that opportunity to review my skill set, to look at the issues that I had dealt with and overcome, and decide that I was going to take these experiences and I was going to turn them into an opportunity. That's what we call recovery. Resilience is necessary. Recovery goes along with resilience. And the recovery part was accepting the flaws. We're going to talk about 10 statements here that I believe are essential for anyone who wants to be a leader and succeed in leadership. But I took the skill sets that I had. As a trial lawyer, I was an extraordinarily gifted storyteller. I also was a critical thinker. That's lawyering. And I looked at the fact that I had failed but was recovering as a part of a process that most leaders need to hear about. And I put together a coaching program. And I started to reach out to leaders at a variety of companies throughout the United States, offering my services as a coach. Now, a lot of companies would not have me as a coach. They don't want to have an ex-felon on their payroll. But I can tell you that they missed the opportunity to hear exactly what I have to say to you that I say to them. I bring to the coaching process the gift of truth. You'll note that I put myself down as a recovering lawyer, also as an ex-felon. I also bill myself as the No B.S executive coach, because I'm going to bring to the person in my coaching program the most important thing they can get from a coach, the gift of truth. The concept of being a leader is you often don't hear the truth. You hear someone else's version of it. The higher up the corporate ladder you go, the more you are removed from the real action, the real truth. You get filters based on the levels below you that don't tell you the truth. And they may very well be giving you information that is not good for you or the organization, but benefits them personally. You may very well be being manipulated by people around you who have a personal opportunity they want to get from you. I put that together and I started getting coaching clients because it's a unique approach. It's not good for everybody, but it's good for a lot of leaders who decide that they need the gift of truth. Right now, 20 years later, I have a robust coaching program across the United States. My largest client is $1 billion. I have 58 people in the coaching process. That's the story of redemption and recovery. So I would tell you that during your career, you're going to face the same things I've been faced with throughout my career. And it is how you prepare for that that matters. And that's when we get to these 10 statements. By the way, nothing too profound. I've written a book, it's up there. I've got another book coming. I believe these things matter because I have been able to use them and improve the lives professionally and personally of the people in my coaching process. The first one is that know your blind spots and triggers. Every one of us has blind spots. They're those personality issues that are built into us, and they're there for a variety of reasons. We often can't see them. Mine were very apparent to everyone but me. One was ego. I had a huge ego. I believed I was the smartest person in the room. And if you fed my ego, you could get what you wanted from me. Blind spot. I also needed to belong. I wanted to belong to a group. And my clientele were bad guys, serious bad guys that I represented, defended. I loved hanging around with them, and they loved having me as a part of their group, because it's always good to have a lawyer on call to get you out of a difficulty. But it's also good to have a lawyer around that will help you commit crimes. And I absolutely did that. So you need to know your blind spots and you need to know your triggers. You need to have someone else be able to tell you those, because you can't see a blind spot. That's how it's termed, right? Who you associate with defines you. I absolutely believe this because I've seen it in practice. The 5 people that you associate with most will dictate who you become. Now, I don't care where you are at in your life, this rule applies. It applies in high school. Who you hang out with, the 5 people you hang out with the most, will dictate your behavior. You may think that that's not true. It is absolutely true. If that group of 5 decides to do something and you want to continue to be a part of that group, the pressure is on you immediately to agree. Whether it's right or wrong, whether you agree or not, groupthink will kick in, and for the most part, you will do that. You may regret it later. Most people do, but you're going to do it. At every level of your life, every phase of your life, this principle is a part of that. Once you are with another group, work is a good example. Yes, you associate with people at work. You go out and drink with people at work. You go to parties with people at work. And before you know it, that's your group. That group begins to dictate your behavior. Find your flock of fools. My next book is entitled, Every Leader Needs a Fool in Their Life. And the concept of the fool is someone who you trust and respect that will give you the gift of truth about yourself. Because you may think you know who you are, your perception of you is not accurate. Unless it is verified by someone you trust and respect who gives you the gift of truth, who tells you about who you really are as they see your actions and hear your words. Until you have that person or more than one of those people, you are going to make mistakes. Your fool will help you avoid the mistakes. Learn from failing. Again, success is the ability to go from failure to failure without losing your enthusiasm. If you believe you are not going to fail, you will fail utterly. The most difficult person for me to coach is someone who has never failed. How do I get them to take another look at themselves? I use one phrase. You are not as good as you think you are. Usually that irritates them really bad because they're not used to somebody telling them that. They're used to somebody kissing their butt. And when you tell them that and you say, by the way, I have evidence, right? My opinion does not matter. I have evidence that will show that you're not as good as you think you are. That's how progress is made, is when you accept the fact that you're not perfect, you're not infallible, you will then start to progress. Have few regrets. Extraordinary at this point in my life, I can tell you that my regrets, even with prison, is that I didn't do the things that I should have done. I chose something different. I regret the things I did not do. Have an action plan. Life is built on momentum. If you don't believe that, keep trying to start from a dead stop. You have to build momentum in your life, and you build momentum through action plans. Every day of your life should have a purpose. And I know this is too heavy. Oh my God, I'm a teenager. Leave me alone. Seriously? Every day needs to have a purpose. What do you get out of bed for? If you don't have a purpose to get out of bed, you don't get out of bed. If you don't have a purpose to move yourself forward, to become better than you are, you lose an opportunity that you will never get back. The day is gone. You know the one thing you can't recover? Time. You can get energy, you recover energy, you can recover money, you don't get time back. If you waste it, you get no return. If you use it appropriately by having an action plan that says, this is something I want to accomplish because it means something, it matters. And then you have those action steps. Here are the things I'm actually going to do. If you write it out, you will get it done. And as you build momentum, you will achieve more and greater by that momentum. Be harder on yourselves than you are on others. I was never hard on myself. I was merciless on everybody else. No one else was as smart as I was. No one else was as good as I was. No one else should be the leader except me. I refused to see my flaws. I was a narcissist. I can tell you that that leads you to failure quicker than anything else, because first, you're not as good as you think you are. Second, the manipulators are going to take advantage of you every time they can. They will suck the blood out of you and leave you to die. The example of that, my brother, my friend, the person who brought the temptation in. We started talking after I left the union, and he said, Paul, if they ever indict us, I will take all the blame. All the blame. Who do you think was the primary witness who testified against me at both my trials? Shall we state the obvious? Somebody say it. My best friend. Exactly. He got to understand under oath and said, I'm nothing but a dumb hick from West Virginia. I have no education. I only did what he, and he pointed at me, he told me to do. By the way, pretty good story, right? Here's the lawyer, guy really intelligent. He's the plan maker. Of course, the dumb hick didn't make the decision. He went to prison for 1.5 years. I went to prison as a ringleader for 7. The person who brings you the temptation is not your friend. should not be your business partner, should not be your boss. Now, you can choose to stay, but recognize that this is a bad person that is going to make bad things happen to you if you don't get away from them. Learn how and when to say no. Your time and your energy is valuable. I talked about you can't get back time. Energy is that other resource that you don't want to expend on meaningless activity. Have fun, by the way. If you think I'm saying up here saying, no, it's all about business, it's not. Have fun. But when you've decided that it's business, that there is a goal, whether it's school or it's your business or corporation, you need to commit your time appropriately. Don't let other people steal it. Don't let other people control it, because they will try to. If they see you as a valuable asset, as a talent, they're going to want to use you for their purpose, not necessarily yours. And those purposes have got to align. If they don't, you have to be able to say, no, I'm not going to do that. By the way, extraordinarily difficult. You think it's easy to say no when your boss is saying, I want you to do something you know you should not be involved in or should not do? It is extraordinarily difficult. When your next promotion hangs on the line, when you might get terminated, oh my God, I've got bills to pay. I've got kids in school. I've got a house. Yeah, that's when the pressure is applied. Have the fortitude to be able to say no. Be perpetually curious. I find that to be a trait that most leaders at some point stop having. They stop being curious. The world is full of wonderment and opportunity. You have to be willing to look for it. You have to be perpetually curious. That also means that you have to ask questions. Find out about the people around you. You'd be shocked how talented they are and who you should be associating with. And finally, always be uncomfortable. The concept of comfort is we stop, right? I'm in a comfortable position. What you told me when you say that is, I'm through growing. I'm through getting better. I'm content. Complacency requires no effort, but it also provides no reward. 10 things. You get to take them with you. Maybe they'll be useful, maybe they won't. But I can only tell you that the opportunity exists right now so that you can put in your head, when you are faced with that temptation, I hope an image, fortunate for you, pops up in your mind of me standing here saying, don't be an idiot like I was. Resist the temptation, do the right thing. That's the moral of the story. So, questions, please. I had the other two groups, they participated to some degree. Professor Mertz said the group that participates, the most participation gets the next test off. So I just want to let you know that. No pressure. No pressure. By the way, I was convicted of perjury, so I'll lie and you won't even know. So, questions, please, about the prison experience, about anything else.
Questions?
Yes?
Were there signs that your best friend was ever like sneaky, or was that like sort of the first tell, like when he testified against you? Was that like, were you shocked or did you see it coming?
I put him through two periods of rehabilitation for being a coke addict. So yeah, by the way, there's a moral to that story. Don't trust a coke addict. How about that? I should have started off with that. No, I was not surprised. I knew it was coming. I knew that when they indicted him that he would throw me under the bus as quickly as possible because he was not going to go to prison if he could avoid it. That's the way everybody is, because this crap about I'm going to protect you, I'm going to stand by you, goes away when the bad thing's getting ready to happen. And when the United States government decides to put the hammer on you and indict you, they are successful 99.2% of the time. There ain't no slam dunk unless it's the government, and the government had a slam dunk. So absolutely. All I can tell you is, be careful who you associate with. Yes, sir.
Did that guy ever try to like talk to you after you got out?
No. By the way, I can only tell you what I told the other two classes. I make no bones about it. I hope he's having a heart attack as I speak. Right now, he's laying in the gutter dying. By the way, he did not make me do this. That doesn't mean I have to like the guy. No, I look at the betrayal because I did think he was the guy that was going on. That's on me. I did it. I made a choice. I paid the price, the consequences. The fact that he got on the stand and did what he did, that was the betrayal. Did I know it was coming? Yes. Doesn't mean it didn't hurt. It did. Yes, sir.
How do you know who to trust then in business? Because everybody changes.
I'm sorry.
How do you know? How do you know who to trust then in business or anywhere, really?
I believe that, look, I think that trust and respect go together. If you can't respect somebody, you can't trust them. But you do not do blind trust, all right? Nobody's that good. I also believe that everybody knows right from wrong. I think a 5-year-old can tell you, if you describe it in language they can understand, is that the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, right? So I would suggest to you that the uh-oh factor is built into you. Don't ignore it. You see, when the temptation is so great, we know it's right. I knew it was right or wrong when that temptation came out, but I ignored the uh-oh wall. I just said, I'm going to ignore that. No, you don't get to ignore it unless you want the consequences. So I would suggest to you, you are capable of making that decision as long as you are not blind to the relationship or to the situation. And remember, a temptation does not come to you as a bad thing. It comes to you as a good thing for you. Something that would matter to you, something that you want, something that you've been working for. So all I can tell you is the uh-oh factor is real. All you have to do is pay attention. We stop paying attention to that because the temptation matters more than the right thing to do. Yes, sir.
How did they catch you?
How did they catch me?
Yeah, like,
Well, as the federal government always does, they get enough information to go after somebody who then flips on the next person, who then flips on the next person. So they work their way through the guy who gave us the bonus. I'm not sure what he did to get on their radar, but once they went after him, he had no problem whatsoever saying, by the way, here's the guy I gave the money to. And of course, my partner, my best friend, had no problem saying, and he's the guy that set this up. That makes you the kingpin. You get extra time for being smart.
Did the person who gave you the bonus serve time too?
No.
No?
You got immunity for testifying.
Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. Other questions, comments? Oh my God, you guys don't want to know about prison?
What college did you go to?
I'm sorry?
What college did you go to?
What college? Obviously the College of Thieves. I went to DePaul University for both my undergraduate and my law degree, and then I went to Lewis University for my MBA. Lots of education, not a lot of work. Anybody else? I know you guys are all getting ready to go.
Less than a minute. Does anyone have any other questions?
No.
Gosh, I wish we had a couple
Yes.
prison stories.
What's like a memorable experience from prison?
In prison? Easy peasy. I'm sitting in the TV room, first time in 2 years. I'm going to watch a football game. I'm sitting in the chair. The guy up front's watching Spanish TV, a real Spanish guy. Prison polite is something nobody ever thinks about, but prison is very polite because of consequences. A black guy comes in, he's a weightlifter, he's about 250 pounds, 6'5". He walks up and he violates politeness. He changes the channel without asking. That's not right. That's not polite. A little Hispanic guy looks at him, gets up, folds the chair, leaves. I'm like, oh, football, I'm good. 5 minutes later, Hispanic guy comes back. He has his shank. For those who don't know, that's a homemade prison knife called a shiv. He's now wrapped it in duct tape. Why? Because once you start stabbing somebody and the blood flows, you don't lose your grip. He runs down, jumps on the back, and stabs the guy 21 times. By the way, I was gone by then because I folded up my chair and left. Everybody goes, why didn't you go help? I said, well, first, he could have started stabbing me. Second, they were impolite. It was an etiquette breach.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.